In 1990, there was a major land dispute between a group of Mohawk people and the town of Oka, Quebec. This crisis drew worldwide attention, launching Native land rights into the spotlight, and became a symbol for Native, military, and unresolved issues. The tension between Native and non-Native people in Canada had been high around communities bordering reserves, mainly over uses of land. A town in Oka, Quebec was making plans to expand a golf course and residential development onto land which had been traditionally used by the Mohawk community and included the Mohawk burial ground. The mayor of Oka, Jean Ouellette, announced that the land area would be cleared without having the office consult with the Mohawks on the plan and taking no historical or environmental issues into consideration. Since the 18th century, the Mohawk had been pressing the Canadian government to recognize their right to the land in the area, but their request had been ignored. Back in 1868, the chief of Oka Mohawk people wrote a letter which demanded the return of their land. However, the petition produced no results. The area designated for development contains some of the last remaining forests, known as the Pines, a community lacrosse field, and the Mohawk Graveyard. Many non-Native residents opposed expansion as it was a members-only golf course and raised many environmental concerns. For example, cutting down the trees would lead to soil erosion. The Mohawks decided to take action and set up barricades leading to the development site. The mayor responded by demanding the barricades to be taken down, and when the Mohawks refused, the mayor decided to take action by asking the Quebec Provincial Police, the SQ, to intervene. The history and relationship between the SQ and Native groups had not been steady. Even so, the resistance continued, with Aboriginal supporters from across Canada joining the Mohawks at barricades.
Good evening. At one point, there were as many as 12 Native barricades in Quebec, but tonight only one is still standing. It's the one that triggered the whole dispute, the one that Quebec police tried to storm 53 days ago, the one in Oka. Mohawks erected that barricade last March. They were trying to prevent the town from expanding a 9-hole golf course on what they claim is ancestral land. Tonight, the barricade is completely surrounded by the Canadian Army. The soldiers have dug themselves in after a day of high tension and drama. It all began at about 1 o'clock Eastern Time this afternoon. Army units moved in here at a location the Mohawks refer to as the North Pole. Soldiers also took this barricade on the western edge of the community. Then they pressed on toward the final blockade. It all seemed pretty easy, that is, until they reached the center of the Indian land and things came to a dramatic climax. The CBC's Neil MacDonald was there.
Instead of moving on the Oka barricades by road, the Army chose the terrain it likes best, the forest, moving in from behind, coming in the back way. When they rolled, it was swift. The warriors met them on a dirt road deep inside the Indian territory.
We're gonna start swinging our Kelly, fuckers, where to go? Come on! Come on! Come on!
The infantry major in charge made it clear he was heading for the barricades at any cost and that bullets would be met with bullets.
Mohawks from a nearby reserve blockade the Mercier Bridge in support, effectively cutting access between Montreal's southern suburbs and the islands of Montreal, resulting in angry locals. The relation between Aboriginals and non-Aboriginal people worsened due to this. The SQ now had to deal with hostile civilians who often blamed them for the situation too. The RCMP were brought in to assist, and the Premier of Quebec at the time requested the help of Canadian Armed Forces. This put the protesters under heavy pressure. Despite the presence of the armed forces, negotiations were slow, and it took several weeks before the Mercier Bridge and highways 132, 138, and 207 were reopened. SQ attacked the barricade using tear gas to create the confusion. SQ Corporal Marcel Limay was killed during the brief gunfire that followed. Protests continued until September 26, 1990, when the Mohawks dismantled their guns and surrendered to the army. In the end, the federal government purchased the Pines in order to prevent further development. The golf course expansion and development were cancelled. Several Mohawks were detained by the military as a result of the crisis. Some were convicted of crimes, however, only one person served jail time. There were positive and negative effects. Public opinions varied widely. Some locals were angered by the blockage, while others sympathized with the protesters. This also brought on a new set of problems as some Canadians developed hardening attitudes towards Native claims and rights. The Oka crisis was documented and also inspired many novels and films. However, the warriors suffered from a post-traumatic stress disorder such as anxiety and depression. During this time, the First Nations were attempting to gain their own recognition as an independent group within Canada. The Oka crisis played an important role in the establishment of the Royal Commission of Aboriginal People. The crisis revealed issues in terms of Aboriginal affairs as well as government and police responses to protests. The Oka crisis definitely left its mark on Canadian